Welcome to Embrace Your Inner Boldness, the podcast dedicated to empowering you to live confidently, embracing all parts of who you truly are. I'm Melissa Henning-Frank, and I'm the founder, success coach, and consultant of Becoming Bold, LLC, and you can count on me to be your guide on this incredible journey of self-discovery and transformation. Let's get right to it. Welcome back to another episode of Embrace Your Inner Boldness. Today's episode might not be for everybody right now, but it probably will be for everybody at some point in time. Today we're getting heavy, going vulnerably deep into a personal and raw topic, and that's the crushing weight of grief. As some of you may know, I recently lost my special needs sister, and it's been an incredibly challenging and awful time since her passing. I've experienced grief before, but this time it's much more painful and much more difficult to cope with. And despite the many tears and the crushing pain, I'm also experiencing immense feeling of gratitude and appreciation for the time I had with my earth angel sister, as I call her. And I'm experiencing an incredible compassion and empathy for others who have felt grief in the past or are feeling grief now. Michelle impacted every single person she met, and she's been a lifelong teacher for me, and even now, in the afterlife, she is still teaching me. I find myself actually blown away by this experience. The impact and the intensity of grief isn't something we talk about enough. And as you know, my mission is to confront the things we don't talk about so we can stop playing small and embrace our inner boldness. So, even if these words are difficult to speak, I believe it's important for the collective, for humanity, to get them out. So here we go. Grief is very consuming. It's very unpredictable. It's very pervasive in the way that it takes over your mind, your body, and your spirit. It's such a powerful emotion, and it pulls you down farther than maybe you have ever been before. It has me thinking a ton about people who experience this or maybe never find their way back from being pulled down, or maybe it takes an excruciatingly long time to pull themselves up and out and find their way back. So my intention is to help others find their way back by being real, raw, and vulnerable. And this episode is me sharing unfiltered talk about my experience, exploring the so-called stages of grief, and offering big love and understanding for those who are going or have gone through the pain of loss. So first, let's talk about the stages of grief. Grief it sucks. It just sucks. It's a crazy, powerful, and complicated emotion. It's important to acknowledge that everyone experiences it differently, but there are some common stages that many people go through. And those stages include denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. There's not necessarily a specific order or time frame or time estimate to any of those. And in fact, it's normal to bounce back and forth around each of those stages. And just when you think you've made it through one of them, any one of them can pop up again very unexpectedly. There's no sugarcoating the emotion of grief. It's fucking terrible. I don't wish this pain on anyone. I also can't explain these stages from anyone else's perspective, so I'll keep the sterile definitions brief, and I'll share how my personal experience felt and how I'm actually still feeling in each of these. So the first stage, as they say, is denial, and this is the initial shock and disbelief that comes with the loss. It's a way for our brain and our mind to protect itself from a reality that can be very overwhelming. I will tell you, when my sister died, it definitely felt like I was in another world. It felt like it was not real, like it wasn't happening. I was not really in my body. It was a lot for my brain to process in those moments, and I'm assuming that's considered the denial stage. I'm sure other people experience this in different ways, but that was my personal experience in denial. And then there's the anger stage. So as the reality starts to sink in, anger can show up. And I'm learning it's a natural response to the pain and injustice of losing someone. You might not even realize what's happening. For me, I started feeling irritated and angry at people for many different reasons. It actually takes me a lot to get angry, so I knew that something just wasn't right with me. I couldn't tolerate anyone complaining about minor crap that really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things in my mind, especially with grief rearing its ugly head and making my heart ache. So literally, I was dealing with life and death, and how it was playing out in my mind when I would see people on social media complaining about how they thought the halftime show was so terrible. I had anger inside of me, and one thing that I just wanted to scream to everybody was, just fuck all the way off if that's the worst of your fucking problems. Logically, I know we're in the middle of some crazy stuff politically, but right now I'm consumed with the reality of death and dying. So things happening on Earth just don't seem as crucial. And I know that there are some very important things, so I'm not downplaying that. But when you're faced with death and dying, it changes everything. And death and dying definitely feels like a higher priority than the Super Bowl or the price of eggs. And I'll just leave it at that. And then next is the bargaining stage. So during this stage, we might find ourselves saying what if or if only kind of statements. And that is an attempt to regain control in a situation that feels uncontrollable. And I can completely relate to this. There were many things in my mind that I was wondering, what if this or if only this? And I finally had to remind myself that everything happened the way it was supposed to. It's a core belief that I hold, and it's absolutely bringing me comfort during this grief process. Next, let's talk about the depression stage. And this is the sadness and the emptiness that come with the loss, and it can be incredibly heavy. I've never felt a heavier feeling. It feels like the lowest vibration possible, and I find myself analyzing this particular stage more than any of the others. I feel like I'm an incredibly resilient and positive person, and well, I usually am. So to feel this level of pain and this level of deep sadness, it's brought me an empathy that I could never have understood if I didn't experience this myself. I've got a new understanding, or at least a new compassion for others experiencing depression, whether it's due to losing a cherished loved one or any other reason. So for me, there were actual moments it felt like I'd never be able to pull up and out of the deep, dark trenches. It felt like their depth and the darkness were just not anything I had experienced before. So it's important to allow yourself to feel these emotions and seek support if needed. I hope if you ever experience that level of darkness or any level of darkness that you have someone in your life who sees you and knows when to ask if you're okay and to help you know that you're not alone. And it's not just okay to let the feelings out. It's absolutely necessary for your healing. Then there's the acceptance stage, and the stage doesn't necessarily mean you're over the loss or healed completely from the loss, but rather that you have found a way to live with it. So it could be having moments where you feel like even if you're not okay right now, you know you will be okay. It could be moments of happy memories with your loved one, or maybe even laughing, remembering funny things they said or did. Acceptance allows you to honor your loved one while still moving forward. And it's the glimmers that appear when you begin to adjust to life without them physically in the world. It's figuring out what to do with your time in a way that you feel positive momentum. And for me, it's a drive to live a less filtered life, to live more like my sister lived, finding humor in the unconventional and sometimes inappropriate things. It's greeting people and telling them that you love them, even strangers, just simply living and loving as unconditionally and authentically as possible. And that's kind of where I'm settling right now in acceptance. So now let's talk about the emotional and psychological aspects of grieving. Grief affects us on many different levels, emotionally, psychologically, even physically. And it's important to slow down and really understand what's happening to you during this process. Let's start with emotional reactions. So you're probably going to experience a roller coaster of emotions, from sadness to anger to moments of joy and laughter, and all of those feelings are valid. For me, sometimes I feel fine, and then all of a sudden tears well up for seemingly no reason at all in the canned vegetable aisle at Walmart. So remembering all the ways she made me laugh brings about joy and giggles, and sometimes it's laughing and crying at the same time. There's no wrong answer. And then there's psychological responses. Your mind might be trying to process the loss through dreams, through intrusive thoughts, or even a sense of disbelief. So be gentle with yourself as you navigate those experiences. For the first 2 weeks, my brain kept replaying the scene of the night my sister passed. Replaying, hearing the sounds, seeing the sights, and feeling the heaviness and the anxiety and the despair and the trauma. And that was the worst part, I think, of each of these stages and reactions. I would wake up in the middle of the night consistently reliving that horrible day. I've also experienced anxiety and worry about losing my other close loved ones. The first week was a lot of worry about how I would cope, losing anyone else with this grief having such a hold on me and making me feel just super sensitive and so weak. I don't know how else to describe it. All of that crushing heaviness has to go somewhere. So I want to share some things that helped me. I'd recommend trying to maintain a routine if you can at all. And if it's not what you want to do or can do, don't do it. But for me, it was a way to provide sort of a sense of stability and normalcy in the midst of the chaos. I also highly recommend mindfulness practices such as meditation, deep breathing, yoga, moving your body, helping ground yourself and reduce anxiety. There are some really good guided meditations. So look on YouTube, or my personal favorite app is Insight Timer. I noticed that for me, a good guided meditation in the morning, followed by however long I needed to cry, really helped. Or I should say, is helping me get through my day without that pressure in my chest and without the mood swings I most definitely experience if I'm not caring for myself in this way. A good cry in the shower helps a lot too. It's very cleansing and clearing, and you can be very intentional about just letting the emotion flow through you without worrying about getting mascara on your pillow or your shirt. Humor can definitely help in situations too when you're ready for that. This morning, my guided meditation was on feeling into the present moment. So it covered how dwelling on the past shares the same vibration as depression, and worrying about what will happen in the future shares the same vibration as anxiety. So while both of those are natural, neither of them actually serve us very well if we stay there for too long, ruminating and worrying. So feeling into the present moment really gave me a sense of safety, of gratitude, and of peace. And that's definitely something we need when we are grieving. Then there's the physical symptoms. So grief, and actually any emotion, is going to manifest in physical ways. And for grief, it could be fatigue, it could be headaches, stomach aches, weakened immune system. Grief is, quite frankly, just exhausting in all ways possible. So it's hard to sleep, it's hard to focus. Headaches come maybe because of all the crying, and definitely because of the stress placed on your body. And your body, if you don't process that pain, it will store that pain, and it'll show up later as anger or anxiety or even disease. Grief triggers the release of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, and it can cause inflammation, sleep disruption, digestive issues, even heart problems and high blood pressure. And according to holistic practices, the lungs are known to carry grief. In fact, in those practices, it's understood that prolonged or unresolved grief can actually lead to chronic lung conditions or make existing respiratory problems worse than they are. So this is why it's important to take the time to honor the grief process. Don't push it down. It's not good for you at all. If you feel the emotions coming up, let them out. Cry it out. Find a place where you feel safe to do that. It's so important to pay attention to your body's signals and take steps to care for yourself. Your body needs support to handle this emotional strain. Again, it's something that we don't talk enough about. Make sure you're resting when you're able to. Make sure you're drinking your water and taking your vitamins, especially if your appetite is non-existent. Now let's talk about something that's deeply comforting to many, and that is the spirit world. When someone passes away, some people believe that their spirit or their energy continues to exist and can be felt around them. And it's me. I'm some people. I believe this. So you might feel your loved one's spirit in various ways. It could be through dreams, through signs, or a sense of their presence, where you just feel like something is with you. It's like their energy continues to touch your life, offering comfort and guidance. The night she died, I felt my sister in my heart in a way I've never felt energy or power before. So her energy and her power were vibrating in my heart and through my arms, and I believe she helped carry me through that night to help my mom. I have zero doubts in my mind that it was her. I know her energy. She was and is unconditional love, and this was a love energy stronger than I've ever known in my entire life, and I'm so grateful for that amazing experience. A connection like that can be deeply personal and unique, and for some people it's maybe a feeling of warmth or a gentle breeze, and while for others it could be a specific sign like seeing a cardinal or hearing their favorite song or a memory that pops up into your mind that brings a sense of closeness. I still feel my sister in my heart sometimes, but it's not nearly as intense as it was that night she passed. So if and when you feel a connection, embrace those experiences as a way of maintaining a bond with them. Trust in your intuition and the ways you feel their spirit with you. Don't let people who doubt and non-believers take that away from you, because it's yours and you get to hold on to that for as long as you want to or need to. As I mentioned earlier, I really feel a pull to help others who have gone through this process or are going through this process. And truly, there are people going through this every single day, multiple people, multiple days. So if you are one of those, if you're going through the pain of loss, please know that you are not alone. And grief is a journey that we all navigate in our own way and in our own time. So here are some words, I guess, sort of as an understanding for those who are grieving. First, be kind to yourself. Give yourself permission to grieve in your own way. There's no right way or wrong way to process loss. This is personal to you. And be kind to others. So being out in public while you're grieving definitely brings a unique perspective. And I'm sure that my grief shows on my face and ripples out in my energy. And it makes me wonder, how many people do we encounter on a daily basis who are going through something that has taken them down into these dark trenches? And why aren't we more kind to one another? So don't assume that people are just grumpy. They might not be able to manage their energy in that way right now, and a kind word or a smile might be just what they need. Make sure you take it one day at a time. So focus on getting through each day rather than trying to plan too far ahead. Grief, like I've mentioned, can be overwhelming and consuming, so try to take it step by step. One day you might feel kind of good. Let yourself feel kind of good then. One day you might feel kind of awful. Let yourself feel kind of awful then. Meet yourself where you are. Love yourself where you are. Also, reach out for help. Don't hesitate to seek support from friends, family, or professional counselors. It's okay to ask for help when you need it. This might not come naturally to you. I know it doesn't come naturally to me, but I do know it's important for me to claim some quiet time alone for my meditation and cry when I feel like I need to cry. And with that, make sure you're allowing your feelings to come. So we tend to push feelings down, right? We get that little twinge and the little pressure in our chest, and we feel like there might be tears starting to come, and we try to think about something else or just try to avoid that feeling. And I understand that, and I've done that. However, those tears need to come out. Those tears are healing. And while pushing your feelings down might help you cope in the short term, it's likely going to extend the grief process and the pain because you're not allowing it to happen when it wants to happen. So when you feel your feelings and truly experience them in whatever way works best for you, it's going to be so much less taxing on you than keeping them suppressed. So for me, keeping my tears and sadness in ends up creating irritation and anger. And it's so much healthier to let the feelings flow. So to wrap this up, grief is complicated, it's intense, it's deeply personal, and it's also a testament to the love and the connection that we have with those we've lost. And as I navigate my own grief, I find such comfort in the memories and the joy that my sister brought into my life. I hope this episode offers some comfort and understanding to those who've experienced this, and for people who love and care for someone who is grieving, some insight into the craziness that might be going on inside your grieving loved one's head and heart. Don't be nervous about talking about the person who passed, even if it brings tears out. At least that's the way it is for me. It's helpful for me to know that others are thinking of their loved one also. And I've heard other people say this too, but I'm sure that's not for everybody. And then please remember that you're not alone. We are in this together. If you've experienced or you are experiencing grief, you are in my heart. And I wish you healing and comfort as you walk this long road. I hope you are taking good care of yourself and prioritizing your mental health. I've included a list of resources and even some journal prompts in the show notes to help you heal from what you're going through. Looking forward, I'm feeling a future topic being created in my heart to share the story of what it's like growing up with a special needs sibling and really what a blessing it truly is. It's something I wish people could understand and experience for themselves. So until next time, please be kind to your mind. Thanks so much for joining me on this episode of Embrace Your Inner Boldness. I hope you found inspiration and actionable tips to help you live more confidently. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe so you never miss out on the latest insights and empowering stories. Please take a moment to also leave a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us reach more listeners and be able to continue bringing you more content that uplifts and motivates. Empowering yourself and/or your team starts with embracing your inner boldness. When we stop playing small, we open the door to limitless potential. Remember, the only limit to your greatness is the one you set for yourself. Stay bold, stay fearless, and let's make this journey unforgettable.